then he concludes that it wouldn't be proper for him to assert categorically, only this is true, anything else is wrong. But now he's going to consider the consequences. Okay, so as for the view that there are definitely no immaterial realms, if this position is true, then it is certainly still possible that I might be reborn among the gods of the fine material realms, that is the form realm, who consist of mind. But that is, it would seem to me that he's saying that I would have some motivation for practicing the jhanas and then taking rebirth in the form realm. But if I accept that there are no immaterial realms, then I have no motivation for trying to practice beyond the jhanas to reach the immaterial meditations. Okay, but now, as for the teachers who hold that there definitely are immaterial realms, if their word is true, then it is certainly possible that I might be reborn among the gods of the formless, of the immaterial realms, who consist of perception. That is, if he accepts, the way I understand it, if he accepts that there are immaterial realms, then he'll have a motivation for practicing to attain the immaterial meditative states, and as a result of those attainments, he could be reborn in the immaterial realms. Okay, then again some reflection based on prudence. The taking up of rods and weapons, quarrels, brawls, disputes, recrimination, malice, and false speech are seen to occur based on material form. That is, we have bodies, and because we have bodies, there can be physical weapons, and with our bodies we have speech, and so we can quarrel with one another, dispute with one another, backbite, and engage in false speech. But in the formless realm, or immaterial realms, where there are no bodies, there's no physical violence, none of these types of malicious or harmful speech. So reflecting in this way, he practices to turn away from material form in order to achieve the formless meditations with the aim of gaining rebirth in the formless realms. Okay, so this is considered maybe the wiser position. It seems that the Buddha doesn't actually here try to adjudicate between the two positions, but the implication is that for a meditator it's wiser to accept the position that there are the formless states, even though they're not desirable as the final goal of the spiritual life. But for one who seeks to be freed from the limitations and the drawbacks in material form, having a belief in formless realms serves as a motivation for practicing meditation to transcend the form realm. Okay, now we come to the last pair of opposing views, which is, well, the first view is that there is definitely no cessation of being. This is, the expression used here is bhava nirodha, which elsewhere is used as a synonym for nibbana. I actually don't particularly like the word being as a translation for bhava. I picked that up. That was actually used by Bhikkhu Nyanamoli, and I kept it within his translation. But I think being, those who come from a Western philosophical tradition, being suggests the totality of existence, or existence as opposed to non-existence, whereas the word bhava has a more specific meaning in Indian spirituality. Bhava means, the way I understand it, a concrete state of individual existence. A state that will begin with birth or with conception and continue to death. So that is a bhava. So we could say that bhava expresses the individual states of individual existence within the beginningless process of samsara. And so the cessation of this continuity of individual existence is liberation from samsara, or nibbana. Okay, so that is the view of some ascetics who seem to be holding that there's no liberation from samsara, or maybe they hold that since the person completely expires with death, that there's no need to seek any kind of spiritual liberation from samsara. Okay, the opposite view is the view held by those teachers who say there definitely is a cessation of being, a cessation of existence. Okay, so now the wise person reflects thus. Okay, he reflects that some teachers say there's definitely no cessation of being, but that hasn't been seen by me. And other teachers say there definitely is a cessation of being, but that has not been known by me. So if I were to take up either of these positions and say, this is the truth, the opposing position is wrong, that wouldn't be appropriate, because I don't know or see this for myself. So now he reflects on the consequences. That as to those teachers who say there definitely is no cessation of being, if their word is true, then it is certainly possible that I might reappear among the devas or gods of the immaterial realms. Reasoning is not completely clear to me. Maybe we'll come back to that. Let's just continue and see how it unfolds. But as to the ascetics or the teachers who hold that there definitely is a cessation of being, if their word is true, then it is possible that here and now I might attain final nibbana. I think now, let's continue. Okay, then he considers the view of those teachers who hold that there definitely is no cessation of being is close to lust, close to bondage, close to delighting, close to holding, close to clinging. But the view of those teachers who hold that there definitely is cessation of being or cessation of existence is close to non-lust, non-bondage, non-delighting, non-holding, non-clinging. And so reflecting thus, he practices the way to disenchantment with being or with states of existence, to the fading away and cessation of being or of concrete existence. Okay, now sort of the way I would understand this, the teachers in the first category who say that there's definitely no cessation of existence might be those who have attained the formless meditations, like the sphere of infinite space, sphere of infinite consciousness, sphere of nothingness, sphere of neither perception or non-perception, and then say that this is the final goal of the spiritual life. That when you arise in this state, you remain there for eternity, and that is the goal, the state of final peace, the state of complete bliss, the ultimate goal of striving. And so if one accepts that way of thinking or that doctrine, then one will have a motivation for practicing the formless meditations in order to be reborn into one of those realms, the formless realms, with the idea that that is the ultimate liberation, the supreme goal of the spiritual life. This basically was the position of many of the thinkers in the fold of Brahmanism. Like if you look in the Upanishads, the descriptions of the state of Brahman, thus the infinite, the all-embracing, the all-inclusive, the boundless, the immeasurable, all seem very close to descriptions of the formless meditations in Buddhism. Okay, but so if one denies the cessation of existence, but one takes that state of infinite consciousness or nothingness to be the final goal, then one will be inspired to attain that. But the Buddha says, on reflection, one sees that underlying that view and that aspiration, there is a subtle kind of lust or clinging, a subtle craving, a kind of delight and bondage. But the alternative view, the view that there is a cessation, a complete cessation of conditioned existence. In other words, that there is a state of nibbana, a state of complete liberation. That view, if one accepts that view, then one will have a motivation for practicing the path that leads to liberation. So one considers that the view that there is definitely cessation of existence is sort of pointing in the direction of the absence of lust, the absence of craving, the absence of delight, the absence of clinging. And so based on that reflection, then one will practice the way to disenchantment, to dispassion, and to the cessation of conditioned existence. Okay, maybe any questions on this passage?
Seems impossible.
They take the microphone.
It just seems relentless and impossible.
Impossible? What?
When I hear this or when I read this, knowing that I'm at the bottom end of the spectrum.
Put the microphone.
Knowing that I'm at the bottom end of the spectrum, it just seems so colossal.
No, you should never think in that way, but always think that...
And it seems endless because we're so, there's so many things that one, it's not just the attachment to life, but it's also incredible discipline.
Incredible.
Discipline.
Discipline. I think it's always good to think just in terms of taking little steps and progressing bit by bit.
But that's why it seems that it's colossal.
Yeah, but I don't
endless.
think... if one looks from the foothills up at a mountain, one thinks I could never climb that mountain, but if one just doesn't look at the top and just starts walking up, supplied with all the provisions one needs, and just goes at one's own natural pace, eventually one will get to the top. That's the assurance in Buddhism. Okay, the rest of the sutta, I just want to wrap it up, is actually just a kind of recapitulation of what was taught, laid out in earlier suttas. Sutta 51, which we didn't take because we took Sutta 27, which lays out this whole scheme of the gradual training. And so actually here the Buddha, through the gradual training, he's showing really the way to the Nibbana, or the cessation of being. And he concludes in paragraph 40 to 55 with the liberated one who can declare birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more coming back to any state of being. And when the Buddha describes that person, then the Brahmin householders of Sala say, magnificent Master Gautama, magnificent Master Gautama. Then they go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and they become lay disciples who have gone for refuge for life. Okay, we'll have to stop here, and then we'll break for the lunch. And then after lunch, then we can come back, maybe about 12:10, and then we can have discussion of any questions that remain. Okay, and if you can't come back, next week we'll have the class, and next week we'll take a rather short but quite important sutta that merits a fair amount of thought. This is the shorter discourse of advice to Rahula, sutta number 61 of the Majjhima Nikaya. Okay, so let us end with the sharing of the merits. Okay, so we share the merits with the devas, the bhutas, the fair spirits, the nagas. Don't say, a wise man reflects, if there are devas, if there are nagas, if there are fair spirits, then the merit that I transfer will go to them. If there are no devas, no nagas, no fair spirits, still I'm developing a wholesome state of mind. Okay, so we share the merits. Akasata bhumata devanaga hitika punyantang anumoditva chiram rakantu sasanam. Akasata bhumata devanaga hitika punyantang anumoditva chiram rakantu desanam. Akasata chumata devanaga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chiram rakantu mang param etavatacha mehi sampadam punya sampadam sabbe devanumodam tu sabasapati siddhya etavatacha mehi sampadam punya sampadam sabbe bhutanumodam tu Sabba sampati siddhya etavatacha mehi sampadam punya sampadam sabbe satanumodhantu sabba sampati siddhya bhavagupadaya vijetato etantare satakaya papana rupya rupicha sanya sanino dukkha pamuchantu Pusantu Vibhuti. Okay, then we stand. We do 3 bows to the Buddha.
Bow to Bande.
You bought the sweater. Yeah, I did.